We didn't have a minion, but it was, I don't know.
Okay. Welcome to Garden of the Spirit, a class studying apples from the orchard for the second time beginning after Pesach 2014. This class meets in Long Meadow, Massachusetts, the center of the universe, and is held in memory of Malka Ruth Bas Moshe, Margaret Vogel, of blessed memory. Apples from the Orchard contains selections of teachings of Kabbalah from the Arizal, Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, based on the weekly Torah portion, thoroughly translated and explained by Rabbi Moshe Wisniewski. Okay. Building the soul. We are on page. Well, first of all, welcome back, everybody, after the long break for all the yontos. Yes, I missed it too. Missed all the learning that I usually do. We're up to page 391. The first chapter of Mishpatim. There we are. Okay.
Hold on. All right.
Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going first. The Torah has different laws for different types of servants or slaves. These are all called, in Hebrew, there's one word for servant and slave. But there are different laws. There are different types. One is an Eved Kanani, a Canaanite slave.
Mm-hmm.
That's a non-Jew who's owned by a Jew. They don't have to be from Canaan. It can be from anywhere in the world. But if they're not Jewish, they're called a Canaanite slave.
Mm-hmm.
This person is not Jewish, but is obligated to observe all mitzvot that a woman must observe. A Canaanite slave may be male or female. The second type is an Eved Ivri, a male Hebrew bondsman.
Mm-hmm.
He becomes a slave if he stole and can't pay back, or if he sells himself out of great destitution and desperation. So his term of slavery is for up to 6 years. So it does get the term slave, but the Torah sets limits on how the owner treats a Hebrew bondsman. And therefore, he's more of an employee than a slave. The owner may give the Hebrew bondsman a female Canaanite slave by which to produce offering, who are born slaves to the owner. This is very valuable. And just imagine for a second, if you have an accountant who stole money and now can't pay it back, gambled it or whatever, and so you're able to buy this accountant who stole, and now he's your employee for however long you bought him for. So if he needed money to pay back, that would be 1 year's worth, they would sell him for 1 year. If it would be 5 or 6 years worth, then he needed money to pay back, so you'd buy him for 5, 6 years, and he would be an employee for you. If he's an accountant or something like that, it would be very valuable. But in addition, you can also, if he has no skills, there's also the benefit for him to produce more slaves. The third type of slave is an Amma ha'ivriya, a Hebrew maidservant. she only works 6 years or until she turns 12 years old. And ostensibly, this would be for somebody who, a girl who lives with a destitute family. Her family is destitute, impoverished. And the only way to just give her a normal house would be for her to be sold as a Hebrew maidservant. So she's a young girl, and one of the things is that she could marry the owner or the owner's son. So this would be a way of saving a young girl from a bad situation. Okay, so this is what?
Why only until she's 12?
That's a good question. I never thought of that. Most likely, maybe they don't want to make. Maybe they're more worried she'd be taken advantage of, or after 12, it's much more likely that she can save herself by getting married.
She's physically at the age of marriage, I think, more at that age. So I think both reasons are correct.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Alan, ready?
Yes.
Please begin 391.
Building the soul. When you acquire a Hebrew bondsman, he will work for 6 years, and in the 7th year, he will go out freely to freedom. If he came to you alone, he shall leave alone. If he is married, his wife will leave with him. If his master gives him a Canaanite slave woman, and she bears him sons or daughters, the woman and her children shall remain with the master, and he will leave without them. If the bondsman says, I love my master, my Canaanite wife, and my Canaanite children, I would rather not leave freely, his master will present him to the judges, and they will take him to the door or the doorpost. Doorpost. His master will pierce his ear with an awl, and he will serve him until the Jubilee year. If a man sells his daughter as a maidservant, she will not go out of servitude the way a bondsman goes out. If she be evil in the eyes of her master, and he did not designate her and redeem her, he will not rule over her by selling her when he betrays her. If he designates her for his son, he must grant her the due of all daughters. If he takes another wife in addition to her, he must not diminish the food, clothing, or conjugal rights. If he does not do these 3 things, she will leave freely to freedom. When someone strikes a person and he dies, he shall be put to death. But one who did not lie in wait, but Hashem arranged it for him, he goes into exile. And I have set aside a place for you that he should flee there.
Okay, that's the Torah. Number 2 in the sheet. The Arizal raises a number of questions. A, why is the term of the Jewish bondsman 6 years?
Mhm.
B, why may a Jewish bondsman marry a female Canaanite slave? And C, if the owner died in the middle of the term, the Jewish bondsman serves out his term with the son of the owner. A female Jewish bondswoman, that's the minor, the girl, does not serve the owner's son or daughter. She goes free if the owner dies. The Canaanite slave is passed on to the owner's son or daughter when the owner dies. Why the differences?
Mhm.
Okay, go ahead, Ellen.
Why did Hashem decree that the Jewish bondsman should work no more and no less than 6 years? And why may the Jewish bondsman marry a Canaanite slave girl? This is a heinous sin, as it is written, he consorted with the daughter of an alien god. Furthermore, why is the law of the Jewish bondsman different from that of the Jewish handmaid?
Mhm.
For our sages said that a Jewish bondsman serves the master's son, but not his daughter, while a Jewish handmaiden serves neither the master's son nor his daughter. A Canaanite slave, we find, serves everyone in the master's household, as it is written, and you shall pass them on to your children after you. The Canaanite slave is only obligated to perform those mitzvos that Jewish women are obligated in. That is all passive, that is negative commandments, and those active commandments are not required to be done at specific times. Although the Canaanite slave is a non-Jew, his acquisition by a Jew is a semi-conversion of sorts, and he becomes thereby obligated in the performance of mitzvos to a certain degree.
All right. 3. The different types of slaves correspond to different parts of the soul. Okay, we're going to do a few connections here. Every soul has 5 levels in ascending order. Nefesh is the lowest. Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, Yechida. Just so you know, when we count them, the lower 3, Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama, are present within the body. Chaya and Yechida, both are beyond, do not come into the body. Nefesh, remember that this is ascending order, so that goes from the bottom up. Nefesh corresponds to Asiya. I'm sorry, these levels correspond to the 4 stages of creation. And again, from the bottom up, Nefesh corresponds to Asiya, Ruach corresponds to Yetzira, Neshama corresponds to Bria, Chaya corresponds to Asilus, and Yechida corresponds to Keser. That's first of all. Secondly, in addition to all this, all 5 levels of the soul can be found in each of the stages of creation: Asiya, Yetzira, Bria, and Asilus. So Asiya has all 5 levels of the soul. Yetzira, Bria, and Atzilus each have all 5 levels of the soul. Go ahead, Alan.
The mystical explanation of all this is as follows. Every person possesses at least a soul, nefesh, from the world of Asiya. Even if this soul is derived from a higher level of the world of Asiya, it is still no more than a nefesh. This soul is called the nefesh of Asiya, or the Canaanite slave girl.
Okay, one moment. Got to do number 4 too. Remember also that the 4 partsufim of Atzilus also correspond to the 4 stages of creation. And this is in descending order. Abba corresponds to Atzilus. Ima corresponds to Bria. Zerampin corresponds to Yetzira. And Malchus corresponds to Asiya. Also, Abba or Chachma corresponds to Atzilus. Ima or Bina corresponds to Bria. Zerampin, the 6 central midos, corresponds to Yetzira, and Malchus or Nukva corresponds to Asiya. Okay, go ahead, Ellen.
The 5 levels of the soul in ascending order are nefesh, active soul, ruach, emotional, wind or spirit, neshama, breath of life, chaya, living being, and yechida, unique one. In general, these 5 levels are associated with the 5 worlds of Asiya: Yetzira, Bria, Atzilus, and the Keser of Atzilus, respectively. In particular, however, each of the 5 levels exists in each of these worlds. Thus, one can possess, in addition to the basic level of nefesh, of Asiya, a ruach of Asiya, etc. But since they are all aspects of Asiya, they are all considered generally on the level of nefesh. These souls, or levels of soul, are levels of consciousness of Hashem, and the relationship with Hashem that results from this consciousness. The world of Asiya, action, is the world where action is paramount. Everything is evaluated and conceived of in terms of action. A person whose Hashem consciousness soul is on this level relates to Hashem in a very behaviorally oriented, perhaps even just perfunctory way. He has a nefesh, he is alive, but not much more than that. He is not emotionally and certainly not intellectually involved in his service of Hashem. He serves Hashem like a Canaanite slave girl, perhaps not altogether against his will, but if we're up to him, he'd rather be doing something else.
Okay. Thank you. So where do we go next? So now we're going to show how, is Jim here?
Somehow he went away. He was
Wait a
there.
minute. Ah, there you go. Okay, welcome back.
Thank you.
The aliens got you.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay, you're here. So now we're gonna label each of these or connect each of the categories of slaves with parts of the soul.
Mhm.
5. Hashem's name, Ekye, Aleph Hey Yod Hey, equals 21. It can be expanded 3 ways, depending on how you expand, the letter Hey. Either Hey Aleph, which is 6, Hey Hey, which is 10, or Hey Yud, which is 15. In expanded spelling, Ekya can equal 161, 151, or 143. Is everyone with me so far?
Mhm.
Yeah.
If we remove the primary letters and only use the letters of secondary spelling, well, remember how much the primary letters were?
21.
They're 21. So if you remove the primary, we're left with 140, 130, and 122, which is a total of 392. The word for female Canaanite slave, shifcha, is another word for female slave, equals 393.
Of course.
Okay, close enough. Close doesn't count except in horseshoes,
Horseshoes and gamacha.
Grenades and atomic
hand
bombs.
grenades, and gematria.
Oh, yeah, hand grenades too. Mhm.
These 3, what did you say, dynamite?
I said atomic bombs. They added that.
These 3 names of Ekya are present in Malchus of Atzilus. Okay, Malchus of Atzilus, which corresponds to Asiya, the 4th level of creation. Okay, we said before that within Atzilus, within each of the worlds, it corresponds to the 4 worlds. So Malchus corresponds to Asiya, and these 3 names are present in Asiya, in Malchus. And then look what I did next. Okay, go ahead, Jim.
Now, there are 3 spellings out of the name Ekya, whose numerical values are 130, 140, and 122. The sum of these 3 is the same as the numerical value of the word for slave girl. Excuse me, shifcha, with a kola. The name Ekya is spelled Aleph Yud He Yud. 2 Heys of this name can be spelled out either with Yuds, Heys, or Aleph. Thus, we consider only the numerical value of the letters used to spell out the name, ignoring those of the letters of the name themselves. We have 3 possible sums. So Aleph is Lamed Pei, 30 plus 80, 110. Lamed Pei, again, 30 plus 80, 110. Lamed Pei, 30 plus 80, 110. And then Hey, Yud, 10, 10. Hey, 5, 5, Aleph, 1, 1, Yud, Vav, Dalet, 6 plus 4, 10, Vav and Dalet, 6 plus 4, 10, Vav, Dalet, 6 plus 4, 10, Hey, Yud, 10, 10, Hey, 5, 5, Aleph, 1, 1. First spelling out 140, second spelling out 130, third spelling out 122. Sum of these three, 140, 130, 122 is 392. And we still have the Shifchach, Shin Pei He, 30 plus 80 plus 8 plus 5, 393. The name Ekya means I will be. It's an assertion of selfhood and is usually associated with Bina, Sephara of the intellect, that must assume its own selfhood in order to fulfill its function of processing the insight of Chachma. But since Malchus, in order to fulfill its function of transmitting the reduced consciousness of its homeworld to the world below it, must also evince, I don't like the word evince, but whatever, a certain selfhood. The name Ekya is sometimes associated with it as well.
Okay.
Now keep going. You
No,
talked a little.
let me do 6.
Okay.
To sum up, the Canaanite slave corresponds to the soul at the level of nefesh, at the level of asiya. The sum of 3 expanded spellings of Ekya is 393, close to the word shifcha, a female Canaanite slave, which is 392. Ekya is primarily connected to Bina, but secondarily connected to Malchus of Atzilus, which corresponds to Asiya. One moment. Yeah, go ahead, Jim. Bottom
These
of
three names,
393.
Ekya, are present in Malchus of Atzilus. Malchus of Atzilus nests in Asiya. Therefore, its 3 spellings out descend into Asiya. It is said in the Zohar that each of the 4 principal parts of theme of Atzilus nests in one of the 4 worlds. In Abba Chachma nests in Atzilus itself. The Bina nests in Beriah. Zeranpin, the Midot, nests in Yetzirah, and Nukva, Malchus, nests in Asiya. By nest, it is meant, or it is net, by nest is meant the parts of in question becomes the dominant consciousness of the world in which it nests. Thus, the dominant consciousness of the world of Asiya is that of the Sephira of Malchus, which we, as we know, is principally that of actualizing residual consciousness of the preceding levels. Like Malchus, Asiya is the realm in which actualization and action are paramount. The spelling out of any name of God expresses how that name is manifest. Since Malchus of Atzilus is manifest chiefly in the world of Asiya, its 3 spellings out descend into this world. This explains why, in the above calculation, we considered only the letters used to spell out the name and did not consider the letters of the name themselves.
Okay. That is the Canaanite slave and Asiya. 7. The second level of the soul, Ruach, corresponds to the 3rd level of creation, Yetzirah, and to the Jewish bondsman, the Eved Ivri. The name Havaya resides primarily in Tiferes of Zeranpin, which corresponds to Yetzirah. Let's do that again. The name Havaya within Atzilus resides primarily in Zeranpin. Where in Zeranpin has 6 things? Where in Zeranpin? in Tiferes. Tiferes is the center of gravity for Havaya. And Zerampin, of course, we said before that the four parts of Atzilus correspond to the four stages of creation. So Zerampin corresponds to the third stage, to Yetzirah.
Mhm.
Okay, go ahead, Jim.
So Ruach is associated with the world of Yetzirah, no matter what level thereof. A Ruach of Yetzirah is called a Jewish bondsman. One who attains divine consciousness, soul of Ruach, lives in the experience of the world of Yetzirah, that is, in an emotional relationship with God. His service is no longer that of a Canaanite, but of a Jewish bondsman, who, although a servant, is at least emotionally tied to and involved with his master, since they are both Jews. This type of Jew serves God out of genuine concern, love, and awe of him.
Okay, thanks. 8. The word for bondsman, Eved, can be read as two distinct messages. Ayin Beis, Daled. Ayin Beis is 72. 72 is the total of regressive iteration of Havaya. That's 10, that the Yud is 4 times, it's 10 times 4. The Hey is 3 times, 5 times 3. The Vav is 2 times, 6 times 2. And the last Hey is once, 5 times 1, which is 72. Okay, so usually we count Havaya as 72. That's through expanded spelling. Here we're getting to 72 through using regressive iteration, either called Acharayim or Ribua. Acharayim means the backside, Ribua means a square. And then we're left with the Daled of Eved. Daled is 4, the number of letters in Hashem's name. Okay, Jim, go ahead.
The mystical allusion to this is that the word for bondsman, Eved, may be read Ayin Beis 72, Daled 4. To explain, name Havaya alludes to Zeranpin. Zeranpin nests in Yetzirah. Therefore, the posterior of the name Havaya, whose numerical value is 72, descends into this world. The 4 represents the 4 letters of the name itself. All of God's names are associated with specific sephirot. The name Havaya is associated with Tiferet, the heart, central sephirah of Zeranpin. As we have explained previously, the posterior of any name is formed by considering its first letter, then its first 2, then its first 3, etc., until all the letters have been considered. The iterations are then summed up. Similar to the spelling out, the posterior iteration of a name indicates how the name descends to be closed in the level below it. The posterior of the name Havaya is derived as follows. Yud, Yud Hey, Vav, Yud Hey, Vav, Hey is 10 plus 5 divided and plus 10 plus 5 plus 6 plus 10 plus 5 plus 6 plus 10, which is 72.
Okay. Okay, so that's the second one. Now we come to the third level of the servant. The next level of the soul, neshama, corresponds to the second level of creation, bria, and to the Jewish maidservant called Amma. The first 2 letters of Amma, Aleph and Mem, equal 41. There are 4 primary letters of Ekia. How do you get 41? There are 4, we're going to do expanded spelling. 4 primary letters, 10 secondary letters, and 27 tertiary letters, for a total of 41 letters. Ekia resides primarily in Bina, as we said before. Is it? Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead, Jim.
Neshama is associated with the world of Bria. Such a soul is called a Jewish maidservant. Bria is the world of intellect, since Ima, Bina, Nes in it. Someone who has risen to this level serves God with full commitment of his intellect. The mystical allusion to this is as follows. The numerical value of the first two letters of the word for maidservant, Amma, Aleph, Mem, 41, is the number of letters required to iterate the name Ekya, its second spelling out. Okay.
Yeah, now the chart.
All right, the chart. So we have Aleph, Lamed, Pei, and then we have the Aleph, Lamed, Pei, Lamed, Mem, Daled, Pei, Aleph.
Yes.
Then we
So
have
Jim, if you
Yes.
go each column, look at each column and just count how many there are. That's what's important. We're counting how many letters.
Okay. So we have in the column on the left, all right, we'll take this one. We have Aleph, so 4, Hey 3, Yud 3, and Hey 3. Right? So we have 4, 3, 3, 3. Okay, and then in the middle column, we have Aleph 4, we have Lamed 5, we have Pei 3, we have Hey 3, we have Yud 3, we have Yud 3, Vav 3, Daled 5, Hey 3, Yud.
One second. If you look at each column, the left column is the primary letters. Aleph, Hey, Yud, Hey spells Ekya.
There's 4 of those.
4. The center column is expanded spelling for those 4.
And there's 10.
There's 10 in the central column and in the which is secondary spelling. If you take the expanded spelling one step further, and you take each of the expansion, the secondary, and expand them,
there's 27.
There's going to be 27. We're just counting the number of letters here. So that's 4, 10, and 27 gives us
41.
41, which is the first 2 letters of the word Amma, a female maidservant. A maidservant, I'm sorry. Okay. One moment. 10. The third letter of Amma is Hey. We didn't explain that yet. We explained the first 2 letters, which equal 41. In Hashem's name, Havaya, the second letter, Hey, corresponds to Bria, the second stage of creation. So this Hey at the end of Amma is for the first Hey of Hashem's name, Havaya, which is Bria. Okay, that's over here. First paragraph on 395.
So this is the name Ekya and Ima, which nests in Bria, the world of the throne, the Hey, that is the third letter of the word Amma, signifies the Hey of Ima itself. The name Ekya is associated with Ima as opposed to one associated with Malchus discussed above. The world of Bria is the location of the heavenly throne of glory, as explained in the Zohar. In the correspondence between the 4 letters of the name Havaya and the 4 principal parts of Ima of Atzilus, Ima is associated with the first Hey.
All right. Now, 11. We explained back in number 3 that the 5 levels of the soul, besides corresponding to the 4 stages of creation and to Keser, also correspond to different stages in Asilus. So we covered the first 3 levels of the soul from the bottom up. from the fourth from the bottom is the level called Chaya, and that corresponds to Chachma of Atzilus. A verse in Mishlei says, HaChachma Techayeh Ba'aleha. Just the little bit more than that. To sit in the shelter of wisdom is to sit in the shelter of money. And the advantage of knowledge is that wisdom preserves the life of its possessors. If you have money, it doesn't preserve your life. But if you have wisdom, it can preserve your life. Because you might not do things that are dangerous. In this phrase, we find the words chachma and techaya, which connects chaya, the fourth level of soul. Techaya, it preserves the life. Techaya is like chaya of the fourth level of the soul. So a chachma techaya connects chaya, the fourth level of the soul, with chachma, the highest level of Asilus. This is the level of Moshe. I thought we were going to go after the three slaves. There's nothing else. This is the level of Moshe, who served Hashem higher than the level of the Canaanite slave, Jewish bondsman, and Jewish maidservant. This is the level of serving Hashem as a son. Moshe is called the servant of Hashem. Okay, let's go through, see what he says exactly, because some of it's his explanation. Jim, go ahead. 395 at the bottom.
Besides these levels of soul, one may attain a soul from the world of Atzilus itself, not just a manifestation of Atzilus in the three lower worlds. He may attend a nefesh from the Malchus of Atzilus, a ruach from Teferet of Atzilus, and a neshama from Bina of Atzilus, or a chaya from Chachma of Atzilus. We see that chaya is related to Chachma, for above it is written, and wisdom enlivens those who possess it. This is the level of the soul of Moshe. The process of ascending the ladder of divine consciousness and service leads through the four worlds of Asiya, behavior, action, Yitzira, emotional involvement, Bariya, intellectual involvement, Atzilus, which is submission of the self into the reality of God. Once in the world of Atzilus, the soul is no longer termed a servant of God, but has so merged with divinity that it is termed a son of God. This is the level of divine consciousness that defines a tzaddik. Within this level of divine consciousness, there are again levels of ascent. As one identifies with God as ruler of the universe, which is Malchus Nefesh, God's emotional attributes, Midot Ruach, God's intellectual Bina Neshama, or God's super intellect. His original insight that gave rise to creation, Chachma Chaya. This is the source of Torah and the level of divine consciousness attained by Moshe, who served as the conduit or channel through which the Torah was given. Okay.
Okay. We're at 12. Wow. So the fourth level was the level of Moshe, who serves as a son. The original, in the text, it doesn't say son. That's Rabbi Wisniewski's explanation. So I'm really glad he was there, because I would not have connected that with the slaves. There is still a fifth level of the soul called Yechida. This is from Arich Anpin, Keser of Atzilus. Yechida is the level of Mashiach. Regarding Mashiach, it says, Yorum v'nisa v'gava ma'od. He will ascend and be exalted and be uplifted exceedingly. He will ascend means higher than Abraham. he will be exalted higher than Yitzchak. He will be uplifted higher than Yaakov, and exceedingly higher than Moshe. Okay, and I should say that Yechida is way, way beyond. I mentioned that the two highest levels, Chai Yechida, do not enter the body; they remain beyond the body. But Yechida is in a field of its own, category of its own. It's totally beyond what we have, what we're used to. Although Yechida, the essence of the soul, we're able to connect with it on Yom Kippur. Okay, go ahead, Jim.
Higher yet, one may attain a Yechida from Erech Anpin of Atzilus. This is the soul level of Mashiach, of whom it is written, he will ascend and be exalted and uplifted exceedingly. Our sages said this verse means that he will ascend higher than Abraham, be exalted higher than Isaac, be uplifted higher than Jacob, exceedingly higher than Moshe. Mashiach's soul is the collective Yechida of the Jewish people, their total identification with their divine dimension. This consciousness transcends the limits of the Torah as it was revealed through Moshe, and is that of the Torah's inner dimension.
Transcends the limitations of the Torah. I'm learning elsewhere that the Torah takes us so high. Through the Torah, we can get to Chachma, we can even get to Keser. But the Neshamas of Yisrael take us beyond Keser, or to the internal part of Keser, or beyond Keser, whatever it is, the source of the Neshamas. That's very close to what we're learning here.
Isn't that, and I was learning, Baal Shem Tov talks about this, Mashiach, and that ultimately Hasidus is the identification of the Yechida within each one of us, which is really our essence and transcends all levels and isn't even transcending. It is the level of what we ultimately are.
Yes. Yes. And that is the essence of the neshama.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Now we can answer some of our questions. The Jewish maidservant is at the level of Bina Vatzilos. Bina, okay, that's the highest of the three types of slave. Bina is the parts of Ima, who is a partner of Abba, but the mother of Zerampin and Nukva. Are you all with me on that?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Abba and Ima, Chachma and Bina, they're like the parents. And then Zerampin and Nukva are both offspring of Abba and Ima. So, therefore, when the owner dies, the Jewish maidservant goes free, because Bina is the mother of Abba of Zerampin and Nukva. She does not serve the son or the daughter.
Yeah, she can't go lower.
Yeah, correct. Okay, go ahead, Jim.
This is why the Jewish maidservant and the Neshama that descends from the throne of glory serves neither the master's son nor his daughter. She is subservient neither to Zerampin nor to Nukva, they being the son and the daughter, but only to Abba, their father. She therefore only serves the master. Okay,
14. The Jewish bondsman is at the level of Zerampin of Atzilus, the male offspring of Abba and Ima. Therefore, if the owner dies, the Jewish bondsman serves the son. If the daughter inherits, he does not serve her, because Zerampin is higher than Malchus. Go ahead.
The Ruach, however, being from Zerampin, which was blemish, and descended as the Jewish bondsman, does not serve the master's son, does serve the master's son, right? For he's subservient to Zerampin, the son. Still, he does not serve his master's daughter, for he is not subservient to Malchus.
15. The Canaanite slave is at the level of Asiya and Malchus, the lowest level of the soul. It left the realm of holiness and now makes its way back. Since he or she is at the level of Malchus, if the owner dies, ownership transfers to the heir, whether a son or a daughter.
Right. So the Canaanite soul, which is a soul that left the realm of holiness, was blemished and then ascended back to enter the world of Asiya, serves all members of the master's household, for it is at the level of Malchus, which is subservient to all levels above it. The Canaanite slave is a mentality that opted out of divine consciousness altogether in favor of worldly mundane consciousness. When it first repents and submits once again to the order of holiness, it must begin at the bottom, first assuming the role of the simple slave.
And 16. Since at this level, the soul makes its way back into holiness, but has only reached Asiya, a Canaanite slave is only obligated in the mitzvot that women are obligated to do. It is not yet ready to take on the full menu of mitzvot. Women, on the other hand, have a limited number of mitzvot because they are so involved with them, they don't have time for the others. So they both are they both have to do the same thing, but for opposite reasons.
Mhm. Okay. This is why the slave is only obligated to perform those mitzvot that women are obligated, and she has so far progressed only as far as the level of Malchus, the feminine principle. Of course, orientation of the Canaanite slave and Jewish women are the exact opposite. The woman is exempt from many mitzvot because she is busy manifesting feminine consciousness, which we, as explained previously, is the drive to actualize divinity in the concrete reality of this world. The Canaanite slave is moving in the opposite direction. He is ascending out of his former absolute identification with concrete reality of the world into the more abstract world of holiness. Thus, for different reasons, they are both obligated only minimally in mitzvot.
Okay. There's more. And from here on, I'll ask Alan to pick up. We'll give Jim a chance to catch his breath.
Yep.
As we said, the Jewish bondsman is at the level of Yetzirah, the third stage of creation. They are hinted at in the pasuk regarding Yosef. These are the descendants of Yaakov. Yosef, and it continues, was 17 years old and watched the sheep with his brothers. Remember, Yosef was the level of Yesod, the last of Zeir Anpin. When the pasuk places Yaakov with Yosef, it means Yosef interacted with Tiferes of Atzilus, the level of, it means Yesod interacted with Tiferes of Atzilus, the level of Yaakov. He was a youth, means Yesod of Atzilus descends to Yetzirah and interacts with Malchus of Yetzirah. The Torah says about Yosef, Vahu Na'ar, he was a youth. So that means he wasn't fully mature, developed, and Yesod of Atzilus descends to Yetzirah, where it interacts with Malchus, and it can also mean it interacts with Malchus of Asiya, where Klipa can exist. And we'll explain what the significance of that is soon. Go ahead, Alan. 397 as to why.
As to why the master is allowed to give the Jewish bondsman a Canaanite slave girl, this is because Yesod copulates on three levels. The first is above in the world of Atzilus. As it is written, these are the generations of Yaakov, Joseph. Yaakov is an appellation of Tiferes of Atzilus, Yosef of Yesod of Atzilus. This verse thus describes the coupling of Yesod at the level of Atzilus. Go on.
Yeah.
The second is alluded to in the continuation of the above citation. And he was a youth, referring to when Yesod of Atzilus becomes vested in the youth, that is, in the world of Yetzirah, and copulates with its feminine counterpart, that is, Malchus of Yetzirah, or when it descends and copulates at the level of Asiya, at which the forces of evil are able to exist. Yetzirah is emotion consciousness, that is, that of an immature youth. Since in Asiya, the dominant consciousness is that of behavior and action devoid of inspiration, evil can gain a foothold.
See, it's not teenagers' fault.
Yeah.
Since at this level, Yesod of Yetzirah can interact with Malchus of Asiya, which indicates a failing, similar to the failing of the Jewish bondsman that got him in trouble in the first place. The owner may assign his Jewish bondsman a Canaanite slave by whom to produce offspring. Okay, you go ahead. So now we're in, somehow or other, find ourselves, because it's the Jewish bondsman, so we're in Yetzirah now. Yesod of Yetzirah. Go ahead, Alan.
Since the Jewish bondsman was blemished and descended into Yetzirah, then just as Yesod at the level of Yetzirah sometimes copulates below at the level of Asiya, so may his master give him a Canaanite slave girl. The Jewish bondsman having intercourse with the Canaanite slave girl is thus enacting how Yesod of Yetzirah sometimes descends to copulate at the level of Asiya. From all the above, it becomes clear that the different types of servants and bondsmen the Torah describes are different states of divine consciousness. The Jew's sole natural home is in the world of Atzilus, completely submerged in divinity. The fact that he is not consciously at this level is due either to the simple circumstance of his soul being born into a physical body, or because of some failing in a previous lifetime that he now has to overcome. Life in this context is thus a progression through the varied states of divine consciousness embodied in these levels of servants and bondsmen, and finally, through the various levels of Atzilus itself, until the individual is able to reveal on his level his own spark of Mashiach, which every Jew possesses.
Like we said before, Yechida. Okay, we have two more things we can do here. 398. I'm going to be ready in a few minutes. If you want to go now, just go yourself. If you think it's going to start in time. Since at this level, 19. So now we're at the angel of, that we call Tron, because we don't say names of angels that are not people's names. There's an angel Tron, and by the way, he was from the Parsha a few weeks ago, Chanoch, that Hashem took before his time. And I don't know if it said here, I saw something else. Something else about him recently. There's an angel Tron who oversees that the world runs. Apparently, his mate is in Yetzirah, but he sometimes interacts with Asiya. Similarly, the owner may give his Jewish bondsman a female Canaanite slave, but only if the Jewish bondsman has a Jewish wife. If he is single, the owner may not assign him a Canaanite female slave. I guess since Tron has a mate in Yetzirah, then he can also interact with Asiya. Same idea. Okay, go ahead, Alan.
Okay, I forgot where it was. And just as Tron has a mate in the world of Yetzirah, yet descends occasionally to couple with a different mate in the world of Asiya, so can the master give the Jewish bondsman, if he has a proper Jewish wife, a Canaanite slave girl. If the bondsman is unmarried, the master may not do this. Tron is the name of the chief angel of the world of Yetzirah. It is customary not to pronounce names of angels that are not also used as names of people. We see here that the bondsman is modeled after Tron, and it is the fact that he has a mate at the higher level that allows him to have an additional mate at the lower level. The reason for this is now given.
And 20. Additionally, since the Jewish bondsman has a Jewish wife, he has an anchor in holiness and will not be stuck in klipa. If he's not married, he does not have this tether to holiness, and he may get stuck in klipa. Go ahead, Alan.
Furthermore, if he is married, he is anchored in holiness. And even if he will descend below, he will not remain there. But if he is unmarried, he will get stuck below, and it is possible he will remain there and be lost. Thus, the bondsman is deemed capable of surviving the spiritual test of mating with slave girl only if he is already married to a Jewish woman. This is instructive for our general involvement in the physical world, which is necessitated by the divine imperative to make the physical world a home for Hashem. Although this is our purpose, we must always ensure that we are married to the higher levels of spirituality, where evil does not have such a strong hold, before we venture forth to couple or bond with the lower levels of reality in order to accomplish our goals there.
Okay, I think I should have done the next paragraph also, but I didn't. So we'll stop here. And then after that, if you look at the bottom line, it says we'll now explain the biblical verses. So that certainly starts a new chapter, a new idea. Huh, look at that. Okay. So we'll stop here. Fascinating, huh? Something that we always find is that how much significance there is in every little detail in the Torah. And it's very apparent from this section that we just read, this chapter. All right.
So we'll continue 7 o'clock from now on, right?
I'll check with everybody if that works. Probably works for me, at least for the next few months. That we change the clock. Okay, so we'll see if that works. I should